Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well.
I liked your photos.
Thank you. Um, I don't know if I think that when I drag them into a Word document, I feel like the file like kind of gets, I don't know how to describe it. Like they aren't as high quality as they were originally.
Yeah.
So if you want, I can submit them like as the actual like exported files.
Um, I'm probably are you how do you submit them to the DE? Are they running something?
Not on this one, but usually I would send them as exported JPEGs.
Hmm. Well, actually, either way is okay for my purposes. They look good. Are you able to share them with the class? Are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I think so.
Why don't we do that? Once we get started, we'll go through
Mhm.
stuff in the news first. But hi, everybody. Sorry I didn't come through on my promise to come down and actually be in person. Um, but I instead rolled over and slept 3 more hours. So I think that was probably a good idea, and it makes me feel a lot better. I've got to go babysit my grandchildren in Urbana beginning Sunday, and I didn't want to be sick so that I couldn't do it. Um, anyway, how's everything going with you all? Stories in the news. Lots of stuff going on, and at least in politics and law and stuff. I don't know about in zoology, but so a couple of you mentioned Ben. I think you were one who mentioned Ben. You're probably just linking in, but I think Ben, you were one who mentioned the brouhaha about Taylor Swift.
No, in the discussion I was talking about the great white, the baby great white shark.
Oh, go. Let's talk about the baby great white shirt. Somebody, actually, a couple of people talked about the Taylor Swift stuff, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But tell me about the baby white shark.
There was a baby great white shark found swimming off the coast of Santa Barbara, and it means a lot because we've never found a baby great white shark in the wild ever. We don't know where they give birth. We don't know anything about it. But there was like three big pregnant great white sharks spotted there a couple days earlier, and then someone caught a baby great white shark just swimming around on a drone.
Uh, and so what's significant about it?
It just gives people like more because we really don't know anything about great white sharks. We just know that they're big. They're like the biggest shark, but like we don't know where they go to give birth, like the process of it. We didn't even know that they gave live birth really until somewhat recently. Because there were some theories that they laid eggs, even though that they're sharks. But I don't know, it just answers a lot more questions and it gives people more availability to like do research on great whites because we can go to that area now and because we know that they're giving birth over there and hopefully just find more information.
Um, why is it why is it that people don't know very much about great whites?
We have no idea. It was like just a big mystery. They're the biggest shark in the ocean, and we had no idea any like we they just wouldn't let us see them give birth. I don't know. It's like they were doing it on purpose.
Hi, hi, Sydney. I'm glad you showed up because I saw you were wondering where the where the classroom that I'm not in was. Are you there? So sorry about the change of plans. Um, we're talking about great white sharks. But Ben, you did say in your posting, I thought I was losing my mind. I went back and looked at it. Yeah, you did start off your posting by talking about Taylor Swift.
Oh, that was like the just something that I saw interesting. I thought you were talking about the like the draft Because the draft I was talking about the great white.
Okay, okay. No, I
And
was
then the
looking.
something interesting was just I saw people getting mad at Taylor Swift because she was all the carbon emissions with her jet and stuff.
Mm. Oh, so that's what you mean when you say because of the stuff about her carbon emissions. You mean her jet like going to Tokyo and then going to Japan and then coming back to see
Yeah,
the
or like
Chiefs
a
game.
like
Yeah.
her 30-mile jet ride that she took just to see her boyfriend.
Yeah. Well, okay. But you think that's really what's getting people mad at her? What do you think is what's behind
I have
what's
no idea. I just know that like that happened and like it started some news and then I feel like the whole week after that came out like it's just it's been a lot of hate.
uh does anybody else have an idea of why so much negativity is being uh addressed towards her on social media? Of course, there's also very lots of very positive things, and more positive, I guess, all in all, the negative. But what's the source of the negative stuff? MAGA. They think that she's going to support. She supported Biden in 2020, and uh, so a lot of the MAGA world has been directing stuff at Taylor Swift. Even to the point of claiming that the NFL is assigning referees to give the Chiefs unfair advantage and make calls for the Chiefs to help them get into the Super Bowl because Taylor Swift is such a great story and good publicity for them overall. It's really pretty ridiculous. Um, what else do uh by the way, Ben, do you want to share your story on the Great White at some point? Do you have it? Uh, I ran across your post. I for some reason I didn't notice your story. You there, Ben?
Um I don't I'm still like working on like an actual rough draft of it right now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Do you have any so do you have like a first paragraph?
Um
Like a lead, what we would call a lead in journalism? I mean, just or
I
sort
don't
of
know
like
because I'm setting it up as like more of a format. Like I have information that I want to like say in the story, and I
mhm.
have it set up in like a little mini order, and then I'm gonna like flesh it out and like make it into a story, like
So you
either
have like
later
an out.
today or
That's fine.
tomorrow.
You have like an outline.
Yeah, like I have a mini like information outline of just the order that I want to talk about things.
How long have great whites been around? Do you know?
Uh, Longer than trees.
Well, that's an interesting answer. I wouldn't have guessed that. So
70 million years.
70 million years. I mean, it's just sort of interesting that great whites have been this dominant force and sort of storied animal and for 70 million years, and only now are we witnessing their birth, how they give birth
Yeah, we have it's not even how they give birth. We have never seen a baby great white shark in the wild at all until
before
like a week
a week
until
ago.
like a week or two ago. Yeah.
So 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 great white sharks have been on in the oceans of the earth for 70 million years, and it was only last week that people actually saw one born. Yeah.
Yeah. We had no idea where they went at all.
Well, something like that to start wouldn't be bad. I mean, I'm not saying you have to start with what I just said, but that's super interesting. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Have there been stories in the popular media or in scientific media or
About like the sighting that
about
just happened.
but yes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of news stories already.
Um, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good one. Okay, so back to what's in the news. Uh, what else did people see in the news that was interesting? Yeah, Diane.
So this was kind of last week, but this is more science related. But there was something really interesting um, about people discovering this new type of like life form in our microbiome in our gut. They're these like RNA bits, and they're too small to be considered a standard life form. And the sequences, like their DNA, is like completely new to science. And apparently, it's been here the whole time, and we've just never discovered it until now. Um,
Sort of like the great
they're
white
like,
sharks, like the great
yes,
white
it's
shark.
like
Just
they're
little
apparently,
tiny great white sharks.
yeah, they're similar to viruses, but they're like even smaller than viruses. Um, and we don't know like what they do, and we don't know how they interact with our microbiome, but we know that they're there.
What would you call them? RNA?
So they're like being called obelisks right now.
Hmm.
Um, but they're basically just flattened circles of RNA. So, and they're kind of folded into like a rod, and that's why they're being called obelisks.
Oh,
So
well, that's
it's just
super
very
interesting.
interesting. Like we don't know anything else about them, but like they've been here the whole time. So it's just interesting.
Uh, uh, let's see. You already wrote your first piece, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was it on? Remind me.
It was on wolves.
Oh yeah, wolves. Right. You know, I
Yeah.
saw something on wolves this week, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Um, so do you think you might write something like this for your second piece?
I don't know. It's like so recent. I don't know if there's any information, like if there's enough information about it. One of the interesting things is that they're kind of people are thinking they might have been like the precursors to life, um, and kind of reveal because it's complicated, but basically they think that they were really important in evolution and the formation of like multicellular organisms and stuff like that. Um, but I just don't know if we have enough information about them since they're so new.
Right. Um, well, I mean, one thing about news uh is it's something we're just finding out about and that no one has known about before. Yeah, they're just sort of like the birth of the great white shark, something that we never knew about before. We wouldn't have known about in 2023. Uh, that's almost like the definition of news. And then, then you can get into all sorts of, well, here's what some people think, scientists think, here's what other scientists think, here's what they're doing to try to figure it out, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah. I mean, just think about it. I don't want to force you in that
yeah,
direction, but there's lots of stories that have been around about how the composition of little little tiny life forms in your gut is really important to your health.
yeah, it definitely is the microbiome. Yeah, because bacterial cells outnumber human cells in our body actually. So they're very important for a lot of things.
So where did you see this for the first time? Where'd you read it?
Nature, the journal Nature. And then as like I've been looking through the news this week, I'm seeing it popping up on other just random news sites.
So probably maybe science journalists read it in Nature as the authoritative, probably
Yeah, I would say Nature is a pretty big journal.
so in Nature, did they like publish don't they publish scientific papers sometimes?
They do. It wasn't actually a scientific paper though. It was kind of just an overview. It was pretty short.
Oh,
There
okay.
was only a few paragraphs, I think.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, does anybody have to leave early today?
Oh, well, I do have to leave at 1:30, but
Okay, okay.
yeah.
And Sydney, you do too?
Um, yeah, I have to leave around 1:30.
Okay, okay, I'll just keep that in mind. Anybody else? Oh, let's see, Jenna, you've got your hand up, and then the Jada.
Yeah, I also have to leave around 1:45.
Okay.
But I found two things in the news, and they're both from the Daily Egyptian that I read yesterday. One of them being a really short story about how Chancellor Lane is a candidate out of 5 for New Mexico State University's next president.
Oh.
So I thought that was kind of alarming.
That's interesting. Do you think he's done a good job at SIU?
I personally don't know much about it, but the story does say a big factor for his consideration is the increased enrollment that has been going on the past few years, and then also the Imagine 2030, which I brought up last week, maybe, which I still don't know much about,
Is this
but
the crumbling, the response to the crumbling campus?
yes, yeah, I think it might be just honestly like but like a campaign to raise money for um changes to be made. Um, but yeah, and I guess the university is going to have him visit the campus and like fly him out. Even as he's a candidate out of 5, they're still having him visit, which is kind of cool. But yeah.
To be in the interest of full disclosure, I was my vote for my voice when Chancellor Lane was trying to become head of SIU was no, because he had a big admission scandal that had gotten him forced out as head of Texas Southern,
Oh.
a law school admissions scandal, and our SIU search committee was willing to overlook that. Daily Egyptian wrote a lot of stories about it. Kelly Cox wrote, I don't know, 2 or 3 stories at the time that that Lane was being considered. If two of the things that, once again on the sorry to be so negative about our chancellor, but I mean he's a nice guy. But on the negative side, if they're citing our enrollment increase, which is pretty minuscule from what I saw. I mean, it is going in the right
It might
direction.
be, I think I saw it was just a few hundreds.
Yeah, it's
Or maybe around 100 actually.
yeah, and the crumbling campus, the future. I mean, what's he done so far? We just
I know.
but there used to be something. I may have this name wrong. This goes back to when I was just coming to SIU. There was something that I think was called the Saluki Way. I mean, I may have the name of the campaign wrong, but it was an effort by the university to raise student fees in order to build infrastructure, mostly athletic. And it was being pushed by the top of the university, and it eventually was discarded by as being unworkable and too much representing too much of an increase in the fees for students, and not the way to really build infrastructure. But I mean, it's just that if you do, were you thinking that for like maybe that last more in-depth piece that you might do something on that crumbling the vision for how to address the crumbling campus?
Yeah, possibly. I'm just not sure. I know I'd probably have to do some interviews. I don't know how to go about that.
Yeah, you have to do interviews. I mean, I forgot, you're on the Daily Egyptian, aren't you, or no?
Me, no.
No,
No,
okay.
I read it from time to time.
Somebody on the DE, I was sitting in one of their news meetings and they were talking about that same plan. What's the plan called?
Imagine 2030.
Imagine 2030. I shouldn't laugh. I guess it's a good. It just sounds like a lot of emphasis on imagine.
Very vague. Yeah.
Um, So yeah, you'd have to do, I mean, you'd have to call up the I guess, I don't know if it'd be the chancellor's office or, and try to get someone to talk to you about what is 2030 and the details of it and what, you know,
Mhm.
what do they think are the biggest problems with the crumbling of buildings on the current campus? Didn't people say last week or 2 weeks ago that there are like vacant buildings on campus and
Yeah, I notice a lot of vacant, like especially when I walk around Campus Lake on the complete opposite side of campus, there's just random buildings that look kind of abandoned.
you would think the lake would be sort of an ideal place to have to get people interested in the school. But anyway, um, yeah, well,
Oh,
that's
and
it.
then,
Go ahead.
sorry, I had one more thing, and then about the Daily, they did like a huge article about, I think it's called Day in the Life of a Zoology Major, which is why I thought it
Oh,
was interesting because I'm a zoology major. Um, and I thought it was a good idea on their part to write a story about it because maybe I don't know, freshmen and sophomore don't really know like the track they're going down. So they followed around a woman, Elizabeth Foraseppi, followed her like throughout her day, throughout her classes, and like the general um, time that she's been here at SIU. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many other students read the daily for it to apply to them, but
yeah.
I just
So
thought it
did
was
you,
cool.
as a zoology student, did it ring true to you? Did it seem like the story was accurate?
Um, I think so. I mean, she did keep saying uh, how much she likes her labs and how useful they are to her. And I can kind of disagree with that. I feel like I don't know, I just had a lab the other day and we didn't have any, we were doing dissections and we only had like two organisms to share for the whole class. So it's, I don't know, I feel like
Well,
even outside of the zoology department, I feel like my labs are a little bit underfunded and kind of
so
lacking.
why did you only have two specimens? This is for
I'm
how
not
many?
sure.
This is for how many students in the lab?
Um, it's about maybe it less than 20, maybe like 15, 18 students.
So how in the world do you do a lab dissecting two specimens with 15 students? What'd you do? Like divide into two
We,
groups or something?
yeah, we kind of just like where it was passing it around, we had a little tray with it. It was a small little
Yeah.
um sea anemone, I think. And we took pictures and then kind of like we have like a lab notebook and we drew our little drawings from the pictures. And I myself didn't get to like cut into it. It was the TA who actually did. So I don't know. She said she couldn't find the rest of them. So I'm not sure where
But
they went or
where where does one look for sea anemones in your labs? Um, do you think are there other indications that the labs are underfunded?
um I don't know about the zoology department itself because I've only had like one zoology specific class, my animal diversity class. But like the chemistry department, I'm in general chemistry too, and we have these centrifuges, which is like kind of a device where you like spin two vials so that like the liquid is separate from the solid, and they're like manual centrifuges, so you have to crank them. And I don't know, there was like tape, I guess it like all three of them that we had in the lab yesterday were like taped together and broken. So I don't know. And my boyfriend, he's an engineering major, electrical engineering, and he is also constantly complaining to me about just the resources in his labs. So
Well, I mean, that that would be a pretty good story, you know,
yeah,
whether labs are underfunded and lacking, I mean, taped together vials and
not vials, but like the centrifuge device that
oh, the
we used to
device.
like, yeah.
I mean, that's that sounds sketchy. Along with two
And
sea
also it
sea
may
anemones.
seem more like prevalent to me, these like, I don't know, because I come from a community college and the labs there were very, very nicely equipment. Everything was brand new. So that might just be me going from like a really nice
Well,
school to
one would hope that SIU would have better equipped labs than a community college.
that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. What was the community college?
It's McHenry County College, and it was a great college. All the faculty, professors, equipment, everything was amazing there, in my opinion. It's very northern Illinois. I think actually this is unrelated, but President Biden visited there one day,
Uh,
like last summer or 2 summers ago. But
Diane, I noticed you like nodding your head. Were you nodding your head
Yeah,
and
I just agree with like everything she's saying.
you
Because I also
disagree?
transferred. No, I agree. I
Oh,
agree like so
agree.
much. I also came from a community college, also in Northern Illinois, a different one, and I feel like exactly the same way. I way preferred it to here. The labs were better. They were cleaner. The equipment was better. Um, the lab was
the
more
cleanliness
organized.
is big too. Everything
Yeah.
is so much cleaner back
It's yeah,
there.
it's cleaner, like, and then I just like wanted to add something with the labs. Like I've never felt like almost any of the labs have been like helpful because like first of all, just one thing to add, they make you do a pig dissection in two classes, like two separate classes, and they make you do the same thing. I don't understand that. Like we did it in animal diversity and we did it in bio 3. And like I hate dissections. I had to do a crap ton of dissections since coming here. Like I swear, like every single it's just like dissection after dissection. And I don't feel like we're learning anything. And I feel like it's just like also there are some people who like it really upsets them and they have to like leave the room and like there's no substitute for them. They're just expected to come back in and like my TA for the pig dissection when we like first got the pigs out, she like thought she was gonna pass out. So she had to like leave to go to the bathroom. And our TA was like, well, she's not gonna do well on the practical. Like it was a joke. And I'm like, I mean,
Oh
it's true
gosh.
because
Yeah.
and so it's just like it's frustrating to me because in one of my classes, which was just birds, it was ornithology. We didn't do anything for lab. It was a lecture for the whole semester. It's just lectures. So it was a 3 hour lecture every week, where we just sat in a lab watching someone lecture for 3 hours. So I don't feel like I was kind of reading, I was skimming through the day in the life of a zoology student as you were kind of talking. And yeah, I would kind of disagree with the lab part of it. It's just I just really agreed strongly. So I like wanted to say something.
Well, I mean, I think it would be a great story if one or both of you were to write something about, you know, the maybe the underfunding and the way the problems with the labs and how they don't measure up to the junior colleges you were in before. I mean, that's a statement of opinion rather than actually a statement of like what a news story would be. But I mean, I think the idea would be to marshal all the sort of like facts you just the examples that you just were giving me and consider writing a story about that. That seems like something, I mean, that's something that addresses something that's important for the university to pay attention to. I mean, did you all must be, why are there so many is it just that your faculty advisor got you guys into my class, or is it that there are a lot of zoology majors?
I think it's actually both. Sorry if you wanted to respond, Gina, but this is like the biggest school for zoology in the state, and it's the only public school in Illinois that offers a zoology program is SIU.
Oh,
And so it's like, unless you're going to a private school or you're going to a different state, this is where you're going.
so that makes the story even that we're talking about here even more important. If this
Yeah.
is the only, did you say the only zoology
It's the only one in a public school.
in a
Like, I'm
public
sure there's ones
school
in
in
private
Illinois?
schools.
Okay.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, just so, the state's only public university zoology department has underfunded and ill-equipped labs that aren't as advanced as the junior college labs that many students have used before they get to SIU. I mean, something that, that just, I mean, it's sort of that would be sort of like an investigative kind of story, but sort of an important one. I mean, if you're the state of Illinois and this is your one public university program and it's obviously popular, you gotta make resources available, I think.
Yeah. And then to answer your other question about why there's so many of us in your class, at least to answer for myself and possibly others here, when you transfer here, from getting like a community college associate's degree, or at least when I did, there was still a writing requirement, even though I had taken writing classes. And when you transfer here, they really screw over the transfer students in terms of senior hours, which are classes that have to be taken here at the 300 level or above. And so my advisor was basically like, we need more senior hours, and the only writing class that you're eligible for that's a 300 level is this specific class. So I think
So
that's why there's so many of us.
So you're stuck with me. I get it.
Yeah.
Is your advisor isn't Jack Young, is he?
No,
Okay.
Yvonne Grammons, I think is her name.
Okay.
But yeah, just to answer your question, that's probably why you get so many zoology students.
Well, I'm happy to
Yeah.
have you. I am happy to have you. I'm sorry that it's something that you just have to do, but
I mean, it's an interesting class. I'm not upset about it.
Were you gonna say something, Eden?
I was gonna say, yeah, the same thing happened to me, even though like I'm a photography major where I transferred and then I needed like, but I didn't need a writing class though, which is the weird part. I just needed senior hours. And so
Oh, right.
since I was
Okay.
doing journalism, this class just made sense.
Okay. Well, those are good. Those are really interesting. And those stories in the Daily Egyptian were good ones to bring up, Gina. I hadn't even, I guess I hadn't read the Daily Egyptian, and I hadn't known about the chancellor being possibly off to New Mexico. I mean, from a journalist's point of view, it would be, I mean, if you were a reporter on the Daily Egyptian, a follow-up story would be, well, what has the chancellor accomplished in his, what has he been here, 3 years, maybe 4? And what kind of, how significant have he's being looked at because of these enrollment increases, and imagine 2030 and what's really happened. So sort of like looking at the reality behind the person. So that would be a good thing for the Daily Egyptian to follow up on. I'm glad. I think it sounds like the zoology story. I mean, the idea of following a zoology major around on a day in the life kind of feature story. It's a pretty good idea. But an even better story would be the ones you're suggesting, that the state's only zoology public university program is got ill-equipped labs. So think about whether you want to go that direction. Maybe you'll make yourself unpopular in your department, though. I don't want to get you guys in trouble. That's what sometimes happens with journalism, can sometimes make you unpopular. My opposing the chancellor being appointed chancellor may be unpopular with the administrators. Anyway, who else has something in the news? Yes, sir, Eden.
So I forgot the city name already. There was a city in, it's like between Springfield, St. Louis and here. That there was an incident with what do you call a funeral home, I guess, with like them giving the wrong um cremated remains to people. And apparently it happened to like 80 different families. Um so I thought that was an interesting story that happened quite near here.
Gave the wrong remains to a family.
Yeah. It was in Carlinville, Illinois. It's at kind of a small city between Springfield and St. Louis.
Um, that's interesting. So what happened? How did it work out?
Um, I'm not sure what happened afterwards. I know there was a scandal.
How'd they find out that it was
And
the wrong remains?
um, it seems like some people were tracking it and finding things about it, and there was an investigation um across multiple states actually.
And was it just like, I mean, did they cremate people who didn't want to be cremated?
Um, that's a good question. It seems like some of the remains were just like swapped, is what it seems like by the article.
Oh boy, that's that's one of those things. Well, I don't know. I was going to say that's one of those things that would probably be, I mean, it'd be big news in the town that it happened in, where the funeral home
Oh,
was located. But even more broadly, I mean, that's kind of a horrendous kind of situation that people always are afraid might happen.
yeah.
Yeah, like how do I
Apparently
know
you
these
can't
remains are my loved one?
apparently you can't identify cremated remains by like DNA. And so
Is that right? I didn't know that.
the person who was doing this like this investigation did it by comparing I guess they have titanium tags on the records. And so the records at the funeral home, I guess, didn't match the records of the ones that they received.
Oh boy. What had made them suspicious?
I, um, let's see. It's a really good question. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm trying to find where it was. There were allegations, but I don't know where the allegations came from.
Maybe there was a disgruntled worker in the funeral. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
sometimes.
because it's saying that they had received lots of calls from families since the investigation, wanting to know if they'd gotten the right remains.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, once one case comes up,
Yeah.
then everybody else who's ever used that funeral home wonders if they got the right remains, right? So it's a
Yeah.
mess. Oh boy. Um, that's I haven't heard of that happening very often, but I have heard of it before. Um, other stories in the news. By the way, I'm starting on some of you all to, because you're almost, some of you almost already have all your class participation points. And so I'm beginning to put class participation points into the extra credit. So um, just so that you can not not bump up against the ceiling. Um, let's see. Khalil, before I go to you, let me go back. Jada, you had your hand up before. I don't want to skip you.
I had my hand up before because I was also going to talk about Chancellor. I forgot his name. Um,
Lane.
Chancellor Lane. Yeah, I was going to talk about Chancellor Lane.
Yeah, well,
And
I'd be interested in what you had to say.
I'm honestly, all the points that were discussed was what I was going to bring up, especially with the deteriorating um dorms or like the old, well, we call them the abandoned dorms over here by the lake in the West Campus, because they're like just raggedy dorms that's look boarded up, that's just abandoned, like nobody does anything for them. And my draft or my paper was about the increase in emissions for HBCUs, about how they had no room and board. So that's why I'm gonna bring it up because it connected to the story that I was already working on for the class.
So,
So
so tell me again more about that story. I know you, it's probably in my email here. What is,
I was discussing about how HBCUs had got a very big bump in admissions, but they accepted everybody. The problem was they didn't have any place to put the people. It wasn't enough space for their housing to put anybody, so they had to come up with new ways to basically find spaces for them. And this has been happening since 2020, since like after COVID, when school had just got started back up, all the way up until now recently. Like they had their protest about it. There was a lot of things going on about it. I wrote a very, very short version because it's just a lot to get into, like the whole entire gist of it.
yeah,
But
I'm
uh,
skimming through it right now. I see your paper. Um,
uh, what else?
so,
What else happened?
so does that relate to Chancellor, Lane?
Yeah, I was saying it related to Chess Lane because they said that the reason why he's being up for the spot of the president of New Mexico University is because of the admissions. But I'm saying this is nothing compared to the recent upsurge in admissions for the HBCUs because us compared to them, we're not even on the tipping scale. They got some schools got over 50% in admissions, and we got maybe like two.
Right,
So
right,
it was just kind of like you're saying that you're up for this spot to be a president of the university because you had more admissions, but in actuality, it was just because of COVID and everybody realized how much they hated being at home, so they decided to come to school.
right. Gina, did you have
So
something to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys know, my apartment is really close to a building called University Hall, and I'm always intrigued by it because it's like abandoned looking, but it looks really new, and there's like the windows are open and you can see lights on in there. So I've always been curious to what that is. And then I saw something, I don't know, through Instagram or something, but the college is actually using that building to offer like tourists a place to stay, I think, over like the solar eclipse time.
Oh,
In April, I think that's when it's happening.
it is in April. Yes.
And I thought that was interesting because that could be offered to students for the semester, but instead it's offered to like tourists for just like that weekend or whenever that solar eclipse is happening. Just to build off of you, Jada, what you were talking about.
Where is that on campus?
It is right outside of campus, literally like 1 minute away. You could walk to it. Um, I'm trying to think.
Which direction? East, west,
yeah,
north, south?
it's the building right across the street from East Campus from the three buildings. It
Oh,
used to
okay.
be a
Yeah.
dormitory. It used to be a dormitory, I believe, my freshman year, leading to
Okay.
my sophomore year, it was a dormitory. And they had basically said that, well, okay, the year that I came in, 21, was right after COVID, and that was the bump in admissions they had in years. So they said, let's open up basically all the adventures we can for admissions, which will be West Campus, East Campus, and University Hall. And then the thing was, everybody was able to dorm in their own individual room. Now, flash forward to 2020, the year of 2023 or 22, whichever the case may be, they said now you have to double up with your in your dorm. So my class is the last class that's able to have single. Everybody else has to have dorms, or I mean double up or more. And if you want to have a single just by yourself to do it, it'll cost more in your tuition. So that was the whole thing with that.
W-
And U-Haul used to be like very weird because um it was like a typical college dorm in the sense that one side of the like one floor was all um males and all next floor was all females and they all shared communal bathrooms. It was a strange place. I'm not gonna lie to you, but that's just what U-Haul is.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know anything about that. So now they're trying to keep it what vacant until April, so when they can have people come for the eclipse. Is that the
It
deal?
looks
Yeah.
like it. There's no like cars in the parking lot or
Uh-huh.
anything.
That's interesting. Um, okay, let's see. Anybody else have comments on things in the news?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, shoot. Oh, right. Khalil, I saw you up there and then I wanted to go back to Jada and I forgot about you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. So what I found interesting in the news was I have found this story on Los Angeles Times, and it says 5 Marines aboard helicopter that crashed outside of San Diego, and they are confirmed dead. And yeah, so basically a run through was it was this helicopter and it was like 5 Marines on it. I don't know where they were going. I didn't read like the full release, but long story short, it was due to like a real stormy weather, and then like they had to abort because I guess it was just going straight down after like the stress weather and everything, and yeah, and it crashed in mountains in San Diego.
Yeah, I saw that story also.
Mhm.
Are people suspicious about it?
No, I don't think so because their commander had confirmed that they were dead and he knew why. So I don't know if he was in communication with them as it was going on. So yeah, and
Yeah,
then they found the
that,
helicopter. Yeah.
that's a tragedy. Yeah, there was a huge storm in California.
Mhm.
Uh, one of these things where they call an atmospheric river with incredible downpours.
Mhm.
And I'm afraid they got caught in that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
they were approaching, I think, landing at a base in near San Diego, and had to divert and then crashed. So that's too
Yeah.
bad. What was it? 4 or 5 Marines?
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, their Marine commander, I mean, obviously announced that they were dead, but yeah, I mean, obviously he was probably in communication with them as it was going on, so I know that was horrifying. So yeah, I found that was interesting.
Any other stories? That is interesting. Any other stories in the news? Yes, Diane.
I just wanted to add to the previous thing that Jada was talking about. I think that one of the reasons for the increased enrollment, or just a small reason, is that um, the whole like you get your own room in the dorms was a big selling point for a lot of people. Like
Oh,
they were really excited about it. Like, oh my gosh, we get like our whole own dorm, and like they were selling that like because they had so few people that everyone could have their own dorm room. And so I think
so
that
like
was
a bait and switch. They
yeah,
got
because then like the year I decided I wanted to transfer here, that was like one of the things I was like, oh, and I can get like my own dorm room. And then by the time I was actually supposed to come here, they were like, ah, no, you don't get that anymore. Like, so,
I hope you like your roommate.
oh yeah, I went to a different place anyway, so different apartment, but yeah, I just wanted to add, like, I think that was for a lot of people like a big selling point is that they get their own dorm room for the
Uh,
price of one, and
oh,
yeah.
that's interesting. And then they changed their mind. Okay, that's well. Another reason I'm suspicious of Chancellor Lane is that the reason he was pushed out of Texas Southern, as I recall. I mean, this is 4 years ago or something. That that we were doing these stories. Was that there had been very sketchy admissions to the law school, that were people who hadn't done, who didn't meet the qualifications, but they were trying to get their enrollment up. So it, that just makes me a little suspicious. Anyway, I wish him well. Any other stories in the news? Yeah. Yeah, Khalil.
Yeah, I don't have another story, but just to comment on what Diane said, that is mainly the reason that I came to SIU Carbondale. I mean, that and my mom wanted to go here, but when I found out, like, hey, you're in dorms by yourself, that's what enticed me. So you're right about that.
There must be. I'll bet you if we got a couple of people in this class, I'll bet there are probably a lot of people across campus who feel
Yeah,
that way. that they that they came with
yeah,
a.
because yeah, yeah, because when Diane mentioned it, I'm like, I had thought about it like my senior year in high school, and I'm like, that definitely was the reason I came here.
Uh, I feel like we're not doing a very good PR job for SIU in this class, but that's not not necessarily our purpose anyway, unless we're in the public relations end of things.
Yeah.
um, but the other stories that big national stories, I'll just touch on them very super briefly. I mean, that was yesterday was that very interesting Supreme to me, kind of a Supreme Court guy, Supreme Court argument on whether Colorado could kick Trump off the ballot. Uh, it's clear that the Supreme Court is going to say no, they cannot. Um, as a matter of fact, it looked from the oral argument as though maybe a unanimous Supreme Court will say they can't do that. Uh, and even though I am very much personally opposed to Trump, I definitely think that they're right as a matter of what what the Constitution says. The Constitution is the 14th Amendment that says an insurrectionist, a public officer who took a oath of office and then was involved in an insurrection uh, can't be elected to public office. This was all directed at Confederates who had been involved in fighting the United States. And basically, what the justices pointed out yesterday in the oral argument was that if you let one state kick off Trump, I mean, another state's going to find an excuse to call to call Biden an insurrectionist. As a matter of fact, the Secretary of State of the state of Missouri, Ashcroft, has already made that claim. And so you'll end up having red states kick off Biden and blue states kick off Trump, and it'll be a mess. There's got to be like one national standard, not each state, trying to kick a candidate off of a ballot. So that was an interesting thing that happened. Also, a federal appeals court in Washington, D.C. said that Trump had issued an opinion saying Trump couldn't have absolute immunity in the trial he faces later this year in the District of Columbia for the events of January 6th. That it was three judge panel, one Republican, two Democrats. They all agreed. Now it'll go to Trump can appeal to the Supreme Court, so we'll see what they do. I think that's how it will probably end up. Jada.
I just wanted to say I have forgot, but this not really related to America, really, but I guess it does in a way. But in the UK, King Charles just got announced to have prostate cancer, stage 3 or 4, I believe. And when the Buckingham Palace releases any medical statement about any of their members on the executive branch, basically that means that's the ending for them. Same thing happened with the previous Queen Elizabeth. Basically like he's about to be, you know, making his way on in the next like year or so. So in this time, former what is it? I forgot his title. Duke Harry went to Buckingham Palace this time early so he could say goodbye to King Charles because he didn't get the chance to say goodbye to Queen Elizabeth. So within the next year, we're supposed to be expecting. Well, the public has basically came to the conclusion that we're supposed to be expecting a new king, which will be now Prince William, but then King William, and then that would be a whole new lineage of individuals inducted into Buckingham Palace. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it'd really be something if Charles dies soon. I don't know. I don't know what the prostate cancer. I actually hadn't seen that it was prostate cancer. Prostate cancer can be slow acting. So maybe he will be around longer than a year. But he's only been king for a year, and since the Queen Elizabeth died, and she had been queen since the 50s. Um, for many, many decades. So we'll see. That would be a very fast, um, a very short reign for King Charles, who's been waiting around his whole life to become king. That's an interesting story. I mean, it's interesting that Americans, even if we fought a revolution against Britain, are still sort of interested. Many Americans are still interested in the royal family. I mean, Princess Di was like a huge story. You guys know who Princess Di was, right? I'm not, even though she died, Princess Di died long before you guys were born. Uh, but she's one of those people who, like, I remember where I was when I heard that Princess Diane had died in the traffic accident in Paris. I was in Chicago with my family. There are just a few events that you remember where you were when you heard the news. Like when President Kennedy, I know where I was in eighth grade hallway in junior high school when Kennedy was assassinated. Those are so that just gives you an idea of how the royal family is still sort of on people's radar screens. Anybody have anything else in the news? Yeah, Khalil.
If you don't mind me asking, where were you when 9/11 occurred?
I was in that is another real really good example. And I don't mind you asking. I was in my house. I was getting ready to go to work. I remember I heard it on the radio. Yeah, and then I immediately put my clothes on, went straight to work. It was the morning, it happened early. I can't remember exactly what time of day it was, but I think it was around 8 o'clock our time, maybe a little earlier, and went straight to work. We immediately had an editorial. I was on the editorial page of the Post-Dispatch, and the Post-Dispatch decided to put out a special edition that doesn't happen very often anymore. Anymore. I mean, at that point in 2001, a special edition was very unusual. And so a special edition to be out on the streets by early afternoon. And I wrote an editorial that in the time between the attack and the deadline at noon for the special edition, sort of making comparisons to December 7th, the attack on Pearl Harbor, one of those days that changes American history forever. And it did. Looking back on it, I think we can see even more clearly how it did. We fought wars. We're still engaged in lots of military operations in the Middle East. My gosh, things are incredibly complicated right now. Of course, there were military situations in the Middle East before 9/11, but yeah, that was definitely a day that changed American history, and you remember where you were. I can remember that I had a couple of in-laws who were staying and were in the living room, and I talked to them as I went out the door and said, I gotta go. This is something we gotta do right now. Anything else in the news? Does anybody have to leave soon who wants to get feedback from the class on their paper. Number of you did that last week. I said that those who didn't get a chance could do that this week. Anybody who's got to take off and wants to go first? Jada.
Yeah, I wasn't in class last week. Do we just read it off? Or
Yeah,
do
just go
we?
ahead and read it. I mean, if you have it, I don't know if you can share, I don't know if you can share your screen or not, but otherwise just read it.
Okay. Let me find it.
My wife just arrived back in the United States from visiting our son in Amsterdam, so I've got to just send her a message saying welcome back. So if you see me fooling my phone, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Um, well, this is my draft. So this is what I wrote. Um, in a concerning development for historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs across the nation, a surge in new admissions has collided with a shortage of room and board facilities, leaving many institutions wrestling with accommodating. This pressing issue underscores the growing demand for education within the HBCU community as these institutions continue to play a pivotal role in fostering academic excellence and cultural identity. However, the infrastructure strain has clouded their ability to accommodate the influx of eager students. Several prominent HBCUs, including Howard University, Spelman College, and Morehouse College, have reported a significant increase in enrollment for the upcoming and past academic year. While this increase reflects the cultural appeal of the HBCUs and the joint efforts to promote diversity and inclusivity in higher education, it has also exposed deficiencies in the campus resources. To highlight North Carolina A&T University, it says the college has received 28,488 undergrad applications, up from the 28,426 at this point for 2020 and 26,708 in 2019. In 2017, total applications were 18,645. Simmons expects applications to top 30,000 this year for the class of 2025 from higher education. Um, University administrators are now faced with ensuring that every admitted student has access to suitable living conditions/arrangements. Nevertheless, with limited dormitory space and resources stretched thin, finding viable solutions has become an urgent priority. In response to the crisis, many HBCUs are exploring temporary measures such as converting community areas into makeshift dormitories and leasing additional off-campus housing. Although these interim solutions are seen as an improvisation rather than long-term fixes, raising questions about the sustainability of accommodating future enrollment surges. Some universities have to become creative, like Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. University's executive vice president Jen Furdenstein reported that they will be changing shipping containers into dorms. This is what they told NBC News. The enrollment is growing so fast, and the shipping containers provide some sustainable flexibility. We have 4 current residence halls, but they are aging dormitories. So I think the containers will serve a sustainable solution for the foreseeable future. The lack of room and board space not only threatens the quality of student life, but also poses hurdles for academic planning and campus operations. Considering these issues in 2021, students took it upon themselves to start protesting. It started at Howard University, then the students at Clark Atlanta University followed suit. From ABC News, dozens of Howard University students are sleeping outdoors in a tent encampment on campus grounds to protest what they describe as poor and unlivable conditions in the college dormitories. Moreover, it highlights the broader issues of the underinvestment in HBCUs, which have historically faced disparities in funding compared to the predominantly white institutions, PWIs. Community leaders, advocates, students, and faculty are calling for the increased government support and private investment to address the infrastructure challenges facing HBCUs. They argue that investing in these institutions is not only a matter of equity, but a strategic imperative for promotion academic advance in social progress. Students even took to social media to gather more reach. One student tweeted at Howard, "I'm pissed over 24 hours and no change. I've been breathing in this. Mold has been growing under my microwave, under my mattress, in my closet, on my suitcase, behind my mirror, in my fridge. I am taking legal actions and I'll be damned if anyone stops me." Another student wrote, "If you really support Black colleges, share this, support us." These tweets are starting to get popular, which egged on this topic to get national attention. At this point in the beginning of 2024, the topic has died down, but it's still an important topic to raise. Institutions should never put their students in a position where they must fight and act for the right to live safely, especially when students pay thousands of dollars to attend there. This just shows how much thought the government puts into HBCUs, given that HBCUs are symbols for Black excellence in higher education.
Okay, great. The is the federal government giving money to historically Black universities? I mean, I'm sort of feeling like Trump maybe gave some additional money, and then maybe Biden as well. But maybe I'm wrong.
They give money, but it's a very, 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 very low amount. The thing with HBCUs, what they do to get their money, they get private contractors. And then the private contractors, wherever their morality of that company is, they follow suit. So if it's a certain type of issue going on, it'll be like affected with the college, which has happened with the previous dormitories. So it was this whole thing. I forget the name of the investment company. But like they're like a they build stuff and they just were negligent. They just gave the university a promise and they were going to rebuild all the dormitories, and it was a couple of universities that sponsored by this company, and they just never did anything. So it was not only like the university's fault, but also people that they hired to fix the problem for them, instead of them actually doing it with the money they get from the students that pay thousands of dollars to attend, because HBCUs are much higher in tuition than PWI. That's neither here nor there.
You say higher intuition?
Yes, much higher.
You know, it's interesting that I was not very aware of this. So this is a good news story as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I didn't know that. Do you know how many students are ending up in shipping containers for their housing?
I believe it's going to be like an area, and it's going to be like 20 shipping containers, and they're going to be coloring them blue and gold or something. And I was just like, no matter how pretty you make them with paint, at the end of the day, it's still a shipping container.
Yeah. So it says no windows, right?
No windows.
Sounds awful. Yeah, it's interesting that this is happening at a time when places like SIU, and lots of other universities have shrinking enrollments, non-traditionally Black universities. Why do you think there's such a great demand?
I think there's such a great demand because Black students just want to feel welcome and they want to be around people like that are like them. So they try to go with a place that is made for them. It's just unfortunately behind all the glitz and glamour is a lot of problems within it, which is can be said for any institution, but especially for HBCUs, they don't have a lot of resources aside from just the pushing agenda of like excellence in education. They just have hurdles that make it hard for them to continue to get their education. Like this one being the housing situation.
So your piece is it is it's got a couple of pieces of opinion in it and mostly facts. So like if you were writing this for a news story, you'd have to like cut off the first phrase in a concerning development for historically Black colleges and just start with Black colleges across the have a surge of admissions colliding with the shortage of rooms, and then cut off that last paragraph. This shouldn't be happening. But what you have here is a good sort of like editorial or column that's just chock full of lots of facts, which is just fine. So I'm not saying you have to do that. I just want you to see, where you have statements of opinion that would have to come out if it was a straight news story. That paragraph you got, you'd either for the final, you need to have like shorter paragraphs. Some of these are just like a little too long. And that paragraph that has all the numbers in it. I mean, you'll actually reading an article out loud can be sort of good for figuring out what needs to be rewritten, because you remember how you were kind of stumbling over all those numbers in that it's like it's like the last sentence in the third paragraph. Um, so at least that needs to be its own separate paragraph, but you probably should write through it some way to make it a little bit clear. Let's see. Oh, it's really interesting. The people, other people have suggestions or questions that they would like to see the story or the editorial answer or observations. Okay, nice job. So just make those changes and and just write through it one more time and then you can go ahead and I think I've got on the syllabus that next week is the deadline for the first piece. And also the time to come in with an idea for the second piece. Who else has got something to present? Enan, can you share, are you able to share your screen so we can see your photos?
I will try. Let me see. Here it is. Let me know if this is working.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So this is a student view of the SAU Food Festival. I don't know if some of you guys were there, but it was very busy. So I'll read I'll read like the text of it first, and then I'll probably come back to the like the captions.
Okay.
I need to move this sidebar because I can't read all of this.
You think you have
rarely do
all,
we-
do you think you have all the students' names spelled right?
Yes, I had them spell the names for me, which was good.
Yeah,
It's always the
yeah.
worst whenever I like had them spell and then afterwards I'm like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah, good to have them to make sure. Yeah, you got to make sure they're spelled right. That's good. Go ahead.
Rarely do we get to look at all of the different countries and their foods, and this is a great way to get introduced to a lot of these foods, SAU student Celeste Driscoll said when asked why they wanted to come to the food festival. She and a group of students were among the many students who visited the food festival in this student center at Southern Illinois University to celebrate the culture and diversity on campus. And this is the group of students that was there, and I've got to go down to the next paragraph. We wanted to explore new
The
foods.
person you quoted, was she in the picture? I didn't.
Yes, she's
Okay.
the second person here.
Oh, okay, great.
We wanted to explore new foods and try new things and share culture, Amelia Estrada stated. Estrada visited the food festival with her mother, Jessica Edmond, and said that their favorite dish that they tried was the jollof rice from the African Student Union, and that is Amelia.
You won't,
sorry.
you guys won't believe me, but Jessica was one of my students. The stepmom.
That's interesting.
10 years ago.
But not all the students came just to try food. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Pervez Khan, a PhD student at the SAU College of Art and Media, stated that he came to the food festival because food connects us, and the other reason our friends connects us. You know, sometimes I feel like it's difficult to go into crowds, Khan stated, but when you know there are friends, so just come for them.
Well,
And I'll go back for the photos.
That photo, with that last quote, it made me sad because the guy said he comes for the friends and nobody's sitting with him.
I know. I thought that was kind of funny too.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I'll go back and catch up with the photos and the captions.
Okay.
So Kaylee Wobig, Celeste Driscoll, Janae Lee, and Carmen Wilder, left to right. Students at Southern Illinois University posed for a portrait with their food from the food festival Wednesday, February 7, 2024, at the Student Center Ballroom on SAU campus in Carbondale, Illinois. Driscoll said that her favorite dish from the food festival was the mango lassi, which is an Indian drink made with yogurt.
Nice.
A line of flags.
Wasn't there a picture above that one?
No, there wasn't. Sorry.
I feel like I saw a picture where somebody was looking at a door, or maybe it was.
The mirror photo. I cut it because I felt like it didn't add anything. I had an interview with that person too, where I recorded it, and it was honestly one of the funniest interviews that I've done in quite a while. Because I asked him like, what was his favorite food? He said it was the one from Sri Lanka. And I asked him like, how long have you been going? He said he'd been coming for a while because he likes Sri Lankan food. And then I asked him like, so what's your favorite thing about Sri Lankan food? And he said he didn't know. uh, I feel like he
I
was
thought
kind of trolling me.
I thought that was a really good picture, though.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to say about him as far as
Okay.
um this is a line of flags shows the myriad of countries represented and celebrated at the food festival and on February 7th, 2024 at the Student Center Ballroom at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. I leave off some of like this ancillary information later on, just so it's not as clunky. A group of students and their visitors stand in line for the food festival outside the Student Center Ballroom. The line was crazy long. It took me like 10 minutes to get in. Um,
How
and I
many
wished
people? How
it
many
kind of
people on the
wrapped
line?
around.
What is it? Oh, okay. That's what I was going to say. So like 100?
Um, I'd say it was like there were two lines, but I'd say there were any given time there was probably like 50 people in line. And then the ballroom itself was just jam-packed of people. I've got a photo of that as well. This is a group of students wait in line to try a selection of food from one of the many stands in the Student Center Ballroom. um, um, this Amelia Estrada Wright and her stepmother Jessica Edmond left display some of the dishes from the food festival they tried, including a samosa, a jalebi, and jollof rice. I'm actually in a class with Amelia, and she's a photojournalism major as well.
Oh, is she? Well,
Yes.
Jessica was a photojournalism
Oh,
major and then a
that's
master's
interesting.
student in. She did. She was a she did a fellowship that I was overseeing where she went to a country in Africa to do what was really an interesting story on how on women trying to lighten the color of their skin. And I saw her present it at a conference in Washington, and it was the reaction of the women in the room, some of whom were from Pakistan, some from India, some of them from Africa, some of them from Korea. I mean, this was something that it turned out was actually sort of common across various countries, and to a certain extent, like an outgrowth of the sort of cultural stereotype of white skin being beautiful. But she had a really interesting. Did you talk to her at all? Do you know what she's doing?
She I talked to Amelia mostly. She didn't add like a whole lot to the conversation, but I at the end of the conversation I kind of asked like how they knew each other because
Ah,
that's kind of a good information to add, like how they're
yes.
related to each other, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
she talked a little bit afterwards. It just didn't record it.
Yeah.
Um, so I probably should have.
No, that's fine.
Um, and this seats fill up quickly in the student ballroom as more people show up to sample the array of foods. It was hard to photograph in this room because it was kind of dim.
Yeah.
But there's more seats over to my right and to my left, and I'm like back up against the wall. And this is the last photo. Pervez Khan, a PhD student at SAU, waits at a table outside the food festival in the Student Center International Lounge.
He's there to see friends, but he doesn't have any. Oh,
Apparently they were at like the stall, and so he went and
they're going to come. Huh? They were going to arrive. Okay, I shouldn't make fun. That's a nice reason to go. I think you should reconsider on that photo because I think it's such a good photo. Um, but I don't know what you do with the fact he loves Sri Lankan food and doesn't know why.
Yeah.
Are you going to let's see, you're on the DE, aren't you?
Yes, but I think Simeon ran a story on this already.
Oh, okay.
So
So they don't
he's
need
also
another
doing
one.
it, so, yeah.
Well, that's right. It's good work. Nice, very nice. You know what? You know what something that the DE could consider is is linking to more photos on the event. How many photos of his did they post?
I am not sure. Because it hasn't run just yet, and honestly, I
Oh,
didn't check the I can check really quickly though. I'm sure he's put it in the drive already.
I mean, it's
Um,
just something that it's like additional content that the DE can offer to people, and then people can see themselves. That makes them they like to see themselves, pictures of themselves that were
yeah,
taken. So just something to think
I
about.
can I can show it to the photo editor and
Yeah,
sort of like, hey, I made the story for another class. Is there anything you can do with this sort of thing?
yeah,
I would
yeah.
think that would be good.
Tell her that it's a she, isn't it?
Yes.
Photo editor. Um, Tell her that I suggested that that you show her and see if there was any, any way to link to these uh online so people could see more photos.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, it's good work.
And
Who's
the other question I had with
yeah.
that is whenever I'm omitting likes, the first quote that I got, the person like all those ellipses are where she said like, and
Oh,
they were just
yes.
really distracting. So I omitted them and just put ellipses. Is that okay to do?
Yeah, it is. And I actually I was thinking about that and when you were reading it. And I mean, if you're quoting some like a politician or something, you do want to put ellipses in when you're omitting words. But when it's just like a conversation with somebody at a food court,
Hmm.
you know, I I think I was sort of like debating this with myself. I I think that you could just not even use the ellipses and just clean up the quotes. Because it's distracting even with the ellipses, you know. And unless you're omitting something that's like important for the meaning of what they were
Yeah.
saying. Yeah, and if that's not the case, then I think you could just omit them.
Like if the sentence were to like keep going and I just ended like I just got like the first part of a sentence or something, then I would
Yeah,
put the ellipsis sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. That's a good question. Anybody have any suggestions? All right, who wants to present next?
I went last week already, so I got my feedback.
Oh, that's right. I remember it was about the right. Were you able to get some of that information about how the running back uh stats compare to other other halfbacks or fullbacks?
Yeah, well, not yet. So far, I was just focusing on. Well, yeah, I'm gonna do that, but I was just
Okay.
focusing. Yeah, I was focusing right now on when you said like you want to recognize like your awards and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah. So, but I'm gonna
So
do that. So.
I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for. I mean, if there's some like important awards like Heisman Trophy or something like that,
Yeah.
they won, which I don't think he probably did, but mention those, but just sort of like something that helps people sort of get an idea of how outstanding he is in comparison with other similar running backs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he won Heisman Trophy in 2015. I didn't want to
Oh, he did
interrupt you.
win.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's a big deal. So yeah, you maybe I think it was in your piece though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's good.
Okay.
Okay, so we're down to Nick and Ben. See, Ben, you were saying you're still you don't really have you've got an outline, not a piece written down. Anything else you want to talk to people about your piece?
Not really anything that I haven't talked about, and I was like going in now and starting the introduction paragraph with like starting it off with how great white sharks have been around for 70 million years and it's been like a mystery.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good. People like mysteries. So yeah, that's good. And it gets across the sort of a good way to get across that this is new. That sounds good. So, Nick, what about you?
So the conference that I was talking about, the London police held on Monday, I watched most of it. I need to
Oh,
watch it
right.
all again.
This is the sexual assault.
Yes. Uh, the most, I guess, important information that they released was that four of the guys involved got charged, had one charge of sexual assault, the one guy got two. They said that the reason they opened up the case again was that they had more information that they believe could lead to arrests. And then obviously when reporters asked, they said they couldn't say what that information was because that's how the legal system works. That's what I gathered from it, at
Uh-huh.
least.
Right, right. So have you got a draft at all at this point, or where are you on it?
No, I'm still pretty much at the same spot I was at last week. I just didn't get it written down.
Okay,
But yeah, I have more information. I think I have an idea of how I want to take it.
okay. Anybody have any other questions or observations? I was reading some of the postings you all did on the discussion board about fake news and how do you know how do you know when there are reliable sources of information? Um, and and just you oftentimes um rely oftentimes fact checking services, um of which there are a number of news organizations have fact checking services. Uh those can be reliable sources of information. If you think about what's the 2020 election, the claim by Trump about the 2020 election being stolen, on the one hand, you have reliable sources of 60 uh, court opinions that rejected the claim. Trump's Justice Department and Homeland Security officials who investigated it when he was still in office and found the claims of fraud to be false. You have the decisions of a federal court after a trial that Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, defamed poll workers in Atlanta. So these are all like sources of reliable information. On the one hand, on the other hand, you have this the various sources that are claiming there to be fraud are just political hacks, basically. So so that's an example of where you can get to the bottom of the truth of the matter by relying on these reliable sources of fact checkers, the facts in court opinions. There were congressional hearings about January 6th uh, that had public hearings and testimony and a report. Those are all far more reliable than um, the claims by politically motivated advocates. In my opinion, that would be my observation based on 50 years of journalism. Any other questions or observations? All right. Well, we'll see you next week, and turn in your first projects by next week and be ready with a second idea. I think the one thing we didn't talk very much about is today, and I'm hesitant to do it now with such a few number of people on the call. I probably should have done it earlier on, was the reading about artificial intelligence and the effect of technology on information. Maybe we'll try to get back to that and talk about that along with the syllabus readings about the slow journalism of the National Geographic Project, where a former Chicago Tribune reporter is trying to walk around the world. It's sort of an interesting project. He's been doing it. He was trying to do it in 7 years. I think he's already been doing it for about 10 or 12. Just wrecked his marriage, amongst other things. So we'll talk a little bit about what he calls slow journalism, which is a lot of benefits, such as you actually see people, you're walking around with them, and talking to them in their own, places of where they live, not just driving up in a rental car and snatching a quote. So we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. Anybody have anything else to ask about?
So Friday, you want us to officially, we have been turned in our final piece, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, have it turn it in by next Friday.
Okay. And you said you want us to come out with an already idea for our next story?
Yes.
Okay. Is it like, do you want the story to be about a certain topic or like theme, or is it like just
No, your choice.
okay? All right then.
Okay. Great, guys. See ya.